Welcome to Get Over It, the consciousness transforming podcast for exceptional 21st century living. We've got a very different show today. This is for all the pregnant ladies out there, or those wishing to be pregnant, or the men in their lives, or a partner in your lives whose partner is pregnant, and you're like wondering, WTF, what do I do now? Okay. We're going to speak with Bailey Gaddis, and her book is Asking for a Pregnant Friend: 101 Answers to Questions Women Are Too Embarrassed to Ask About Pregnancy, Childbirth, and Motherhood. And folks, she delves deep. Okay, we're going to even talk about having an orgasm while you're having delivery. Okay, that got my attention. So hang in there. If you've got pregnant friends, know someone who's even considering pregnancy, this will answer a lot of those questions. Just invite them over to the podcast. Now, the information shared on Get Over It uses intuitive and pragmatic insight to help you shift your consciousness to break blocks and release energy that is no longer needed. Yes, we're going to help you let go of the BS that is holding you back, but you guys know I always ask that question: are you truly ready to? And by the way, folks, BS is belief system. A bit about me for my new listeners: intuitive since birth. I'm a third generation intuitive with over 3 decades of experience supporting people to break through the blocks along their path. I'm a strategist for personal and professional transformation, revealing cutting edge information that enables you to prosper and thrive. I spent 25 successful years in corporate America as an executive sales professional, and I am the founder of Healing Visions Ministries and the Northern California Children's Education Network, a 501c3 nonprofit. I provide consultations and healings in all areas of life that heal the mind, body, spirit connection, allowing you to live your very best life. My clients say that I keep it real while providing them with accurate information to assist them along their journey as a spirit living a human existence. But they also say, if you really don't want to know, don't ask Monique. My background includes a doctorate in metaphysics, Reiki master teacher, ordained minister, and clinical hypnotherapist. So whether you are stressed, depressed, or possessed, I can help. To find out more about me and the services I offer, go to my website, moniquechapman.com, and I invite you to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. My guest today, Bailey Gaddis, is the author of Asking for a Pregnant Friend and Feng Shui Mommy. She is a childbirth preparation educator, birth doula, and hypnotherapist, and a regular contributor to media outlets including Working Mother, Fit Pregnancy, Pregnancy and Newborn, Cosmopolitan, Woman's Day, Disney's Babel, and more. She also volunteers for a program where she offers in-home support for parents of newborn babies, specifically single mothers and those with babies with special needs. And you can check her out online, and her website is baileygaddis.com. BAILEYGADDIS.com. Welcome, Bailey.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you. Absolutely love the book. I wish I had it, 50 years ago when I was having my kids, but you know what? I get to share the information along with you to ladies or in that spectrum today. What brought you to the point of writing Asking for a Pregnant Friend?
Yeah, it was a gradual process. When I was pregnant with my son 8 years ago, I had all sorts of questions that I never asked because I thought they were really embarrassing. I thought, people, their eyes would get really wide if I actually asked it. So I just shoved them down, kind of forgot about them.
Mhm.
And then, when I started teaching childbirth prep courses, when I became a doula, women would pull me aside and whisper those same questions. And I realized, okay, I'm not the only one. These are questions a lot of women have, but we're all embarrassed to ask.
Mhm.
So that's, when the idea for the book came up, and now I'm about to give birth to my second child, and it has been so nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, just like not having all of these questions that I'm pushing down, it's a much
Mhm.
more, free, liberated experience. So I, really credit that book for, helping me this time around. But yes, so it's all started when I had these questions myself.
Mhm. Well, folks, her son is absolutely gorgeous. If you go to her website, baileygaddis.com, I thought he's so beautiful. I thought he was a girl.
Oh,
Okay.
you're not the only one. And he usually has long hair, so
Well, I was looking at the picture and I'm like, I said, I thought she said she had a boy. She's so gorgeous. No, but she creates beautiful children. But you know what, people, it's more than just the look. Okay. She walks her talk. She believes in her belief system very strongly. And because of that, the universe has blessed her with a lot of wonder in her world, as I explained in the introduction. So, for clarity's sake, Bailey, explain what a birth doula is.
yeah, that's a great question. So we provide, psychological and physiological support to women during the birth experience. We don't have any medical training. We don't provide medical support. So we're certainly not midwives who go
Uh-huh.
through so much training. But yeah, we are there with the woman to answer any questions she has during pregnancy. And then as soon as she is ready for our support, when she goes into labor, we are by her side the entire time until that baby is born, doing massage. In my case, I do hypnotherapy with the moms, affirmations. I mean, anything that they need that's not, related to their medical care, we are
Uh-huh.
there. And yeah, so a lot of emotional support. It's a huge piece of it.
Well, do you ever get pushback from the medical community about being in the room with the mom?
I have been lucky to always have care providers that are fairly supportive of my presence. And if
Mhm.
anybody wasn't openly supportive, they at least weren't hostile. But I do know a lot of doulas that have experienced pushback. But luckily, I think it is slowly changing. More research is coming out
Mhm.
about what a benefit it is to have a birth doula present.
Mhm.
And I really make sure as a doula to not step on anybody's toes. I mean, I help the parents advocate for themselves.
Mhm.
I'm not the one telling the doctor, no, 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 you can't do that. So it's a fine line to walk. But yeah, luckily I've had a pretty good experience with all of the doctors and midwives I've come into contact with.
Okay, now can you be there in the room with, like, say, if the dad or the partner wants to be there, can you be the third person in the room, so to speak, or do they have to trade out?
Yeah, so luckily, I mean, so at the beginning of COVID, there were some
Yeah.
places where the partner couldn't even be there, and doulas certainly, we could not be in the room. I think I was able to attend my first birth again after COVID had started back in June, and
Okay.
they were allowing doulas. So the partner, the birth companion, and then the doula could be present, but typically no one else, at least in hospitals in California.
Okay. All right, let's get right down to it. What is an orgasmic birth? Because neither one of mine was orgasmic.
Yes. Yeah. So orgasmic birth, when we are defining it in a really literal sense, is when a woman has orgasms during the birth experience. She doesn't just have orgasms, usually she still experiences discomfort as well,
Mhm.
but she's able to kind of tip into that pleasure as well. So it's not all discomfort. And a lot of that, to be honest, is genetics. So a very small amount of women are able to actually orgasm during the birth experience. But I really believe that every woman is capable of having an orgasmic experience. And what I mean by that is she's able to go into it without having, a lot of fear. She has, a birth that is filled with passion and
Mhm.
presence, and plenty of moments where, again, she might not be orgasming, but she's feeling pleasure. So that's kind of two two ways to look at it. But
Oh,
yeah, in a literal
oh,
sense, orgasm during birth.
okay. Boy, I had one C-section, and I thought, okay, once a C-section, always a C-section. So when I got pregnant again, and about the seventh month, I went to the doctor and said, okay, so when are we going to plan the birth? And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, I had a C-section. I'm going to have another one. He goes, oh no, dear, you're perfectly capable of having natural childbirth. I was like, oh shit. And then he We had natural childbirth with this one, but it was interesting because I was in hard labor for 21 freaking hours. I,
Wow.
I didn't experience any of that orgasm, but it is what it is.
We
Okay.
certainly do not all, that is for sure.
Yeah. And, I think someone like you in the room would have been able to help me get past the lows,
Yeah.
to kind of keep it the energy more even, if you will, instead of experiencing highs and lows and turning into a real bitch. But anyway, we do what we got to do.
Right,
Now, I
right.
want to ask a couple of questions about bodily processes, I guess.
Uh-huh.
First one, I'm a fan of this. The housewives programs. I watch just about all of them. And on one of them, a woman recently had a baby and she's actually eating her placenta.
Mhm.
Is that like really cool? I mean, is that helpful? Do
That,
you?
yeah, that has become much more of a thing, especially, in like certain communities, like Los Angeles, the community that I'm in, just north of LA, a lot of women do it.
Mhm.
And the thing with it, I mean, I certainly would never tell women 100% yes, do it, or definitely don't do it, because there is not a lot of research that has been done about it.
Mhm.
And I have had clients that, and usually what women do is they will have the placenta encapsulated. So it is completely dehydrated after being steamed at a high temperature. And then it is ground down to a powder and then encapsulated in pills. So
Mhm.
some women, sure, throw a raw piece of it in a smoothie, and that's next
Mm.
next level.
Mhm.
I don't know if I
I'm
could have
not
a
quite
stomach
there.
for it,
Yeah.
but plenty of women do that. But most women have placenta pills, and they take those essentially until they run out after they have the baby. And anecdotally, women say that, or a lot of women say that it makes a huge difference, that it helps their milk supply, that it made them experience less postpartum blues, they felt like their hormones balanced out faster. So, I mean, even if it's a placebo effect, it seems that a lot of women have a really, you know, positive experience from, taking the placenta pills. But what I tell women is, it can also have the opposite effect. Some women have a decrease in milk supply. It doesn't make them
Mhm.
feel great. So I tell women, if you want to do it, try it, but really tune into how you're feeling. If you start to have negative effects, stop taking those pills
Mhm.
to see if it balances out, because of course we're all different with how we respond to that kind of thing.
Okay. And the second one I want to ask that's kind of on the ooh side is cord blood banking. What is that and how does it affect us?
Yeah, so cord blood banking, it is a pretty somewhat complex thing. So what they can do right after the baby is born is, if you're going to do cord blood banking, you get this kit from the quote unquote bank that you're going to store it at. And there's a needle and this little tube, and the care provider pulls blood out of often the umbilical cord, fills the vial, and then they send it to this bank where it is stored indefinitely. And the idea is that stem cells can be pulled from that blood to help to treat different illnesses, say like childhood leukemia. The issue is, a lot of times those stem cells can't be used to support the care of that baby. It can only be used for like a sibling or a parent.
Mhm.
And luckily there are banks where that anybody can access, that you don't have to pay for. And if you needed stem cell treatment because of cancer, for example, a lot of times, people can still gain access to those stem cells. So I could go on for a while with this one. It's pretty complex, but it's
Mhm.
the idea of paying for that storage is somewhat controversial, because people question, whether it's really worth it. But
Mhm.
some people swear by it. So it's an interesting thing to look into if somebody is, yeah, intrigued by that idea.
Yeah, and it's actually something I've never heard of before, being an old lady. So, if it piques your interest to investigate. And again,
Exactly.
a long time ago, these things weren't available to people, but they are now. Now, folks, in her book, Asking for a Pregnant Friend, 101 Answers to Questions Women Are Too Embarrassed to Talk About, pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood. She's actually very funny. And I read this one and this cracked me up. And she was talking about bras and she calls them boob hammocks. And I was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. But there's a not necessarily a scientific way of wearing a bra, but there's a certain way in certain bras you should wear. So explain that to our audience, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, number one, this is, obviously an individual, thing. I think it's really important, obviously, to be, fitted for the right one. For the longest time, I thought I was a B cup. I got fitted, and lo and behold, I was bigger than that. You also want to have, a really nice, breathable material, especially when you're pregnant, because having itchy boobs is a thing
Mm-hmm.
and it can be really, really uncomfortable. So most women, we want to get rid of the underwire when, you're pregnant, especially because that can be really uncomfortable. And then having a bra, made out of like organic cotton. I've even seen these really great soft bras made out of bamboo, which sounds like it would be really rough, but bamboo fabric is actually really lovely and soft.
Mm-hmm.
So really focusing on your comfort, when selecting a bra during pregnancy, not just about something that's going to push those babies up, but something that is going to allow you to have, support, but also maximum comfort.
Okay. Now, I want to get a little bit more serious right here at this moment. And once a baby is born, some women have postpartum depression. I'd like for you to talk about that. And a thing that I had actually asked my mom when I was pregnant with my second child was, Mom, am I going to have enough love for
Oh.
the second child? And she looked at me like I was nuts. She never answered the question. She just looked at me like I was nuts. So, how can you? Um, well, first of all, we can deal with postpartum depression, and then the question of maybe liking one kid more and the other one less, or wondering if there's enough love to go all the way around.
Yeah, yeah. So with postpartum depression, a lot of times this is triggered from a few things, but primarily, the really intense shift in hormones that women experience after having a baby. And so almost all women have what's called postpartum blues. And this is a feeling of just kind of melancholy, typically for about a week after the baby is born. And this again is caused by the really sharp shift in hormones. But most women feel, a lift in that mood after about a week. But some women, it gets more intense and it can turn into depression. And of course, many of us are sleep deprived. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of massive changes. And so it can be so incredibly understandable to experience postpartum depression. And it's so common. And luckily, it's something that more and more women are talking about. It's not at all a sign that somebody is not a good mother or they don't care about their baby or they're not taking good enough care of themselves. It is something that can just happen. So I tell women if you're that low mood continues after a week, if it really becomes debilitating, to absolutely seek support because there is great care out there now for postpartum depression. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
women just need, say talk therapy. Some women need medication. There's, nothing wrong with that. Whatever gets you through, that tricky phase. So yes, definitely seek support. And then with liking one child more than the other, I truly believe that, we have plenty of love for all of our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I do because my 8-year-old has been asking pretty much daily for the last 9 months, are you still going to love me when the new baby comes? And so we've been
Oh.
talking about this a lot.
Uh-huh.
And what I've been telling him is like, yeah, no, I mean, we have unlimited supplies of love within us and our love is just going to grow, and I really believe that. I don't believe in like loving one child more than the other. I really think we, again, plenty of love to go around. In regards
Mm-hmm.
to liking
Different
one
subject.
child more than the other, I think there is something to this, and there's actually been a lot of research about it. And really what this is just acknowledging that, depending on the phase that we are in at life and the phase that our children are in, one child is probably going to be more triggering at certain times than another. For example, you might have this sweet little baby who just sleeps all the time. They're not very fussy. And then say you have a 4-year-old who is very demanding, knows how to push your buttons, For a while, you're
Mhm.
probably going to like the baby a little bit more and prefer to spend time with them because it's just easier, right? But
Mhm.
then that can absolutely shift. The next year, the dynamics can change. So I think we're always in different seasons with our children. And the most important thing, of course, is not to really like let it show just because we might be triggered right by the 4-year old. It doesn't mean we're going to start treating them differently or let them know I actually don't like you as much as I used to. It's our job as parents to process that on our own and to not put that on the kid who's just going through the phase they're going through. But for the
Mhm.
parents to know that there's nothing wrong with them. If you do think every now and then, oh gosh, I think I actually like this kid more than the other one, you're not some cruel, horrible person. You're just being
Mhm.
more triggered by one kid than the other.
Yeah, I always told my kids I always love you no matter what. I always love you. Sometimes I don't like you, just
Yeah,
sometimes you don't like mommy, but hopefully you love her. And they kind of got it,
exactly.
and rolled with the flow. Now, a big thing these days is reveal parties. I mean, in fact, in Southern California, there was a reveal party that started a massive fire.
Yep.
Are women sometimes very disappointed about the sex of their child once they find out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I did not know this was even a thing until I, had the 20-week ultrasound with my son. For 20 weeks, my husband and I, we were convinced that we were going to have a girl. And then we
Mhm.
found out that he was a boy. And I had a few days where I felt really disappointed because I had just completely convinced myself that I was going to have this certain experience with a girl, and it kind of shattered those expectations. And I felt, of course, really guilty after the initial shock because I
Mhm.
thought, well, I have a healthy baby. I should just be grateful for that. But then since I've realized how common it is, for women and partners, to have one sex that they are hoping for. Maybe you already have two boys and you really want a girl, or you
Mhm.
only want girls. I mean, who knows? But most people do have a preference even if they don't admit it,
Mhm.
and obviously it's a 50-50 chance, right? If you're going to have a boy or a girl. And so I tell women, if you're hoping for one sex more than the other, and say you want a girl and lo and behold, you're going to have a boy, number one, let yourself feel whatever you feel about that,
Mhm.
because there's no point in suppressing those emotions and denying them. So go through that grieving process, which usually, I mean, a day or two is all we need. And then we start to get used to the idea of, the baby that is coming to us. And with that said, then start to really tune into the truth that, again, the baby you are meant to have is the baby that has come to you,
Mhm.
and to know that, of course, you are going to love that baby the exact same, regardless of, if they are a boy or a girl. And as we've been seeing, with gender, we don't even know the gender they'll identify with. Maybe
Exactly.
have have a baby with a penis, but he ends up identifying as female. We don't
Exactly.
know the gender. Just because we know the sex doesn't mean that, you know, that will be their gender. And really, with the exception of teaching a girl about her period, I mean,
Mhm.
there's really no experience you can't have with a boy that you can have with a girl, and vice versa.
Mhm.
You don't know who this unique little person will be. So allow yourself to grieve, but then know you're getting the baby you're meant to have.
Yeah, and it's, as long as it's healthy and
Yeah.
you can be happy and allow the baby to be happy, guess what, folks? That's half the battle right then and there. Now, I didn't have pets in the house when my kids were born, but many of my friends did. And they talked about how the pet was like jealous of the baby. So talk to us about that. Can the pet really be jealous, or are we just like projecting onto the poor pet that they're feeling jealous because they want more attention?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I have seen this firsthand, like and dogs especially really show it. Cats, they're they're much
They're
more
so aloof.
aloof as always. But dogs, these sweet dogs wear their hearts on their sleeves. And I have seen, dogs that used to be like really jubilant and had lots of energy become, they would get real slow and almost seem depressed after the
Mhm.
baby comes home. And of course this becomes an issue if the animal is actually aggressive towards the baby, right? Which is
Mhm.
why one of the main reasons I included this question in the book, so parents can navigate, is this still, a safe situation for the baby? And then how can I support my pet through this as well? Because yeah, pets are so sensitive to the energy in the house and obviously to the amount of attention they get.
Mhm.
And, while say like for me having an 8-year-old son, obviously I'm going to be really conscientious of giving him lots of attention and love. But if it was just like a dog, I
Mhm.
probably, to be honest, would not put as much thought into it, and so
Mhm.
it can be really normal for the pets to not, certainly not be neglected, but to really have a sharp drop in the amount of attention they get, which is understandable because
Mhm.
when there is a new baby in the house, that baby needs a lot of attention. So yeah, pets can be deeply affected by it, but there are so many things that pet owners can do to help to ease the pet into that transition before the baby is even born, and then certainly things that can be done after the baby is born to help the pet adjust. And most pets do. Most pets
Mhm.
adjust, and they end up loving that baby, maybe even more than the than the adults, and they can form their own connection, and it can end up being a really beautiful thing. But usually it takes work on the part of the pet owners.
Okay. Now, when we get pregnant, we're always happy. Well, most of us are always happy. But what happens, and take this from 2 points. Number one, you're pregnant and you don't want the baby with all the attention on abortion right now. And then you yourself went through the horrible experience, or maybe learning experience in your case of having a miscarriage. So address those 2 points.
Yeah. So it can be obviously a very challenging, tricky experience. Like, number one, of course, if you get pregnant and it doesn't feel like the right time in your
Mm-hmm.
life, obviously, and there's a lot of soul searching to be done there. And that's obviously a very, individual choice and something that should not just be brushed off, something to deeply look into. And then, of course, miscarriage is something that I know deeply. Yeah, before we became pregnant with this baby, my husband and I, so we tried about, it took us about 2 years to
Mm-hmm.
get pregnant with this baby, and we miscarried about a year after we started trying. And I've supported a lot of women through pregnancy loss, but I had no idea
Mm.
until I went through it myself, the level of pain, the grief, the jealousy towards
Mm-hmm.
other women that were having a healthy pregnancy. And I had an early miscarriage, but which I naively thought before, well, if it's an early miscarriage, surely I wouldn't be as sad. But that was not true. It
Mm-hmm.
still cut me incredibly deep. Physically, it only took a couple weeks to heal. I had to take medication
Mm-hmm.
to clear the uterus. My body never realized that the pregnancy was not developing, which was
Mm-hmm.
hard. So I kept having pregnancy symptoms even after knowing that the baby was not was not developing.
Mm-hmm.
But emotionally, it probably took 3 to 4 months before I could talk about the miscarriage or even think about it
Mm-hmm.
without just breaking down in tears, without having the emotions just crush me, And
Yeah.
so I really became dedicated since then with, number one, talking about it, because I think that was the biggest source of support that I had during the miscarriage, was hearing
Mm-hmm.
from other women who also experienced it, because even though we know the statistics of how often it happens, I still felt like, and many women do, like I'm the only one. Everybody else is having a healthy pregnancy. I'm the only one that can't have this baby. And, that is certainly not true. So I think it's so important when women feel comfortable with it, of course, to share. With safe people that they feel safe with. And then I really just dove into wanting to make sure that this was addressed in the book. I created a course about it just because it's an issue that we don't talk about enough. And I was seeking support of like, how do I navigate this grief? And I really couldn't find anything. So that's become a huge mission for me, is supporting women through pregnancy loss.
Okay, well, folks, if you know anyone who's gone through that process and they need help, have them contact Bailey. And Bailey, thank you for sharing and talking about it. I can still intuitively feel the pain. And so thank you for being willing to go there and address this. Now, when we go to your website, baileygaddis.com, what are we going to find there? Besides a picture of you and your beautiful son and your gorgeous husband.
Thank you. All sorts of stuff. So there are links on my website to buy the books. You can also get access to the online courses. I have hundreds of YouTube videos about, all things pregnancy, childbirth, early motherhood, meditation recordings, all of the ways to contact me via email or social media. So it's really like a one-stop shop for connecting with me and all of my offerings.
Okay. And what do you feel is the most important thing that you want expectant mothers to know? What's that pearl of wisdom you'd love to share with them today?
Two things came to mind. One is definitely to trust your intuition, because there's a lot of us quote unquote experts out there, but ultimately moms know the best. You know the most about your body and your baby, and you can absolutely trust yourself. And to also realize that nothing that you think about this journey, or the questions that you have, none of it makes you bad or wrong. This is a really complex, wild journey, and it's really important to be gentle with yourself, give yourself a lot of grace, and know that truly you are doing the best you can, even if it doesn't always feel that way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Folks, we've been speaking with Bailey Gaddis, and the book is Asking for a Pregnant Friend, 101 Answers to Questions Women Are Too Embarrassed to Ask About Pregnancy, Childbirth, and Motherhood. It's available everywhere. I think you can even get it from her site. You can also check out her other book, Feng Shui Mommy, which we should talk about that one too, because that one sounds really, really cool. But, if you have a friend that's going through this process, or you're even considering going through this process, this is an excellent resource to have. Okay. Women have many choices today, and it's all about making your own individual choices without judgment from others, or taking on the judgments that others project your way. So do consider going out and asking for a pregnant friend. Bailey, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And to the audience, thank you. I always appreciate your time and attention. And remember, the most important choice that you can make is what you choose to make important. Consider making the masterful choice of asking questions about pregnancy, childhood, and motherhood. Abundant blessings, light and love to all. Agape.